Hi everyone and welcome to another episode by Poor Man Gamer. Today is episode 9 of Try Your Deck Thursdays, and we have here a funky deck. Now Clara JK, I featured him as one of the greats about 2 weeks back. If you haven't seen the video, check it out in the description below. I thought he was one of those players that were good at everything, but wasn't particularly great in any one thing. And that's not a knock on his game. I think that's what makes him a good, solid player, is that he doesn't have too many weaknesses. Now, Better Way was able to defeat him here with a very funky deck. And I'm going to show you what I mean here. It's a very infantry-heavy deck with a Nod Buggy as the main infantry counter, and then it runs a stealth tank. And from what I understand, the way he's utilized it is he uses the infantry with speed to try to capture the missiles, and a lot of his success relies on the Chem warriors blowing up the enemy base with the Chem warrior rush, right? And the mutant marauders are also used to great effect in order to hard counter the war dogs or cyber wheels. And you're going to quickly see here what I'm talking about. Now, Clara JK should have tried to win all the different missiles instead of pointlessly running his Pippo through. He could have kept it in the back and had every opportunity to win that missile. I'm not sure why he thought it would be a good idea to run it up, and that was a mistake on his part. And this is what I mean by Better Way's deck. Notice how here he uses a Chem Warrior. That seems to be the secret on this deck, is he uses the Chem Warrior with the Jade missile or Jade catalyst missile to take out the enemy base. And now that the enemy base is quite weakened, it's really dependent on the Cloud JK to try to go ahead and make a stand against further attacks. Now the Nod Buggy, as I said, seems to be the hard counter for infantry, but there is a problem, which is the Nod Buggy, while it is great against infantry, it takes a long time for it to blow anything up. So you can see here, Better Way, if he's not able to win the early game, he does get himself in a little bit of trouble, and rather than trying to contest the missile, he's just going to desperately try to blow up the enemy base there, and that's exactly what he does. And so you're going to see here the mix of stealth tank, another cat missile, that takes care of Clara JK. A very interesting way of winning. It's not unique in the sense that I haven't seen it before. The Chem Warrior Rush for a long time ago was very popular, and I'm going to show you guys here what I feel is a potential weakness of this deck. He was able to squeeze out some wins with it, so let me see, where is it? No, it was here against SPG. Even though he was able to get the win, I feel that this deck, the major weakness is if you can't win the early game, or if you cannot advance enough to blow up the enemy base, and it involves challenging the enemy missile, like challenging the missiles and contesting it to win, this deck does have a weakness because the Chem Warriors and the mutant marauders don't have as much health as they used to, and it makes it a little harder for them to hold his position. Plus, I do find decks that are heavy on Chem Warriors or Flame Troops, things of that nature, it makes it a little easy for them to kill off the infantry. But I think really what I find to be the biggest challenge of this deck, and it's not to rip this deck whatsoever, okay? But I do find the biggest challenge of this deck is simply this. If you are a lower level player, this deck doesn't really give you hard counters so that you can succeed as a lower level player. Now, I love what Better Way did here with some amazing micros, spreading his troops into 3 different missile tiles, even though all 3 of them were weakened in order to get the win. And as you can see there, he got the missile, and now the pressure is on SVG to try to make a comeback. I love the way the Nod Buggy is being utilized right now. I do find, like I said, as somebody with a lower level deck, and you're going to quickly see what I mean later, this deck is not easy to use. Right? It takes a lot of microing, it takes a lot of skills to use it successfully, and I try my best to be as blunt as possible, right? The good and the bad. And this deck is a very micro-intense deck, so it is definitely not for beginners. You're going to see here he tries to defend his Harvester, and he does a really good job with it. SPG just hasn't really done a great job. He's kind of floating his units around, almost unsure as to what he wants. And the missile is 3/4 there. I love the way on the top right, how he moves the harvester and plants the Chem warrior there in order to gain the advantage. I love how he's standing on 2 missile tiles. He's using the mutineers to go ahead as a hard counter against the pit bulls there. And as like I said, the problem with this deck is it is not, look, it's not a speedy deck. The key nowadays to any good deck is speed. Almost every deck that I've seen out there that is very successful utilizes some form of high speed in order to win. In this case, you can see Better Way once again is trying to break through to the enemy base by using the catalyst missile. And you can see at the top right there, the Nut Buggy is doing his job. Better Way is trying to sneak the Chem Warrior down on the bottom. I believe SPG kind of half saw this coming, which is why he's being forced back to take out those Chem Warriors. You can see there's a lot of anti-infantry there. He blows it up, and he does a great job blowing up the base. And like I said here, this deck really depends on being able to blow up the enemy base. And in this case here, he wasn't able to do so. It forced him to overcommit on anti-infantry. And fortunately, Better Way was able to pick up the win because he was able to force the enemy to overcommit with anti-infantry units. And he wins just in the nick of time, right? So well done, Better Way. You are clearly a better player than I am when it comes to microing. I'm going to show you my attempts to use this deck now. Both the good and the bad, and my suggestions on what I feel could be a better improvement for this deck. It's still not perfect, but I feel that it is going to work a lot better. So let me show you some of my losses first. I'm trying to use this deck. I was able to pick up a few wins, but honestly they were not great opponents. Let's demonstrate with here. I did make a couple mistakes in this deck because, as always with new decks, it takes a little while to adjust. And I'll show you guys this match here. I pointed out in particular because I feel that I played the way most players would in the beginning. So I'm going to start with the Rifleman just like he did, and I see that he's trying to set up his MG squad. Clearly my priority is to take out as fast as possible, which is why I go ahead and press forward a little bit. I am underpowered in this deck. You're going to see that in a hurry. The reason why I rolled the Rifleman so aggressively is because I knew that he had the MG squad, and so my success was going to depend on winning the missile early and trying to contain the enemy opponent before it gets out of hand. So I am able to get this first missile, and I'm doing everything that he normally would. My mistake was I overcommitted on Chem Warriors, and I didn't realize that I had no money in my my bank account. I had no Tiberium, and so I wasn't able to launch the Jade Catalyst missile as early as I wanted to, and because of that, it became ineffectual. I wasn't able to blow up the base the way I would like to, and now I have no economic advantage because I lost all of my Chem Warriors. Like I said, I did make some mistakes in this matchup. I couldn't get the way I wanted it to, and you know, it is what it is. So now I'm trying my best here to use the Nut Buggy. Like I said, the biggest beef I have with the Nut Buggy is even though it is better than what it used to be, they still don't have a lot of health, and they just take frickin' forever to blow up an enemy base. I don't know why the Nut Buggy retreated. I wanted to advance it, and because of that mistake, the Nut Buggy didn't advance and attack the MG squad. I am going to lose this missile. I knew that, so I didn't even try to contest it. I had no chance of trying to win. I'm doing everything I can right now to try to hold the middle position, and this is what I feel is the biggest weakness of this deck. When utilized properly and you're able to win the early game, this deck is pretty powerful. But as the game progresses and the enemy is able to get themselves in strong position like they are now, where I am unable to break through with my with any unit really. Once the enemy is in place to try to hold it in position, it really puts you in a bind. What I could have done would use the Chem Warrior, advance it, and use a Cat Missile to try to blow up his base. I didn't do that in this case. I was just so sick of that MG squad that I lost my patience and I sent an MG squad pointlessly just to wipe out a 30 Tiberium unit. Bad move on my part, and with the APCs now in place, they become very, very difficult to dislodge because this deck really doesn't have a hard counter. The Mutant Marauders are naturally weak against infantry, so against APCs they do kind of get shredded. And so to me, this is the major weakness of this deck. You've seen how Better Way utilizes it very well. You've seen the way I play it and how I don't utilize it well. And like I say, this deck is fairly dependent on doing damage on the enemy base. I actually did swap out. I am able to pick up wins, like I said, but these weren't great players. And in the sense that it wasn't very competitive. There's still a lot for these players for them to improve on, so I'm going to show you a win with this deck, and then I'm going to show you what I feel is a improvement on the deck. Or not improvement, but it suits my style of play better, and I feel for people who are not as strong in microing, like the really high level guys, this swap really does work better, which is placing a tank here. So I swapped out the Rifleman. I got rid of it entirely. I replaced the Rifleman with a Cyber Wheel, and I actually replaced it, I added a tank into the deck. The reason I did that is very simple. This deck I felt was too reliant on infantry, and so for example, when I'm up against these Chem buggies, right, I do run into the impossible situation where my level 8 Mutant Marauders just simply don't have enough punch to get rid of them fast enough. Like you can see here, I try to go 2-on-1. I use my Mutant Marauder, but there's just no chance against these Chem buggies because I am so much weaker than the opponent. By building a tank, I'm able to hold the missile pad a little bit better, and with the stealth tank, because of the long reload and a lack of Auxana charge to really boost up the reload rate, the stealth tank in this case has its limitations. It's still very powerful as a sniper against air units. Couldn't really do anything here in that case. I knew I was going to lose that tank. I'm going to go ahead now and continue to pressure up high the enemy harvester. There it is with the freaking Chem buggies, and like I said, normally the Mutant Marauders would hold up very well against the Chem buggies, but if you're like me where you have a level disadvantage and you want to explore a new deck, this is where the tank has really come into its own. The tank allows me to pressure the enemy harvester. It's got a significant amount of health, and it really does allow me to go ahead and pressure the enemy harvester. The rest of this game is not much to watch. This is one of those tech lab heavy decks where he tries to roll up a Basilisk, and by then it's too little too late. So this is what I mean by I was able to pick up wins, not against great opponents. I feel that with this slight change though in this deck, it does make it a little bit more interesting and competitive. I'll try to show you a match here that was a little bit closer. Oh, here's a fun one. I'll show you another loss, and then I'll show you a win to end off this video. And I'll try to keep it quick because I know this video is running long a little bit. I lost against somebody who uses a frickin' flame tank. I haven't even seen a flame tank in eons, so the fact that I lost to them is a huge embarrassment on my part. Alright, I scout in the beginning, I open with a Cyber Wheel. I do notice that this deck, obviously, I am going to be at a disadvantage right in the beginning in terms of the early game because I can't roll out units fast enough. They're expensive. But now this is where I can gain an advantage, which is I have my both of my buildings opened up now. I've got my tank, which allows me to, which just gives me a little bit of health and allows me to pressure the enemy a little bit better. I do have my Mutant Marauders out now, challenging his tank, which is great. Again, with the tank, it gives me a little bit of extra health to fight against the opponent here. I send out my Mutant Marauders. Fortunately, I was able to get this missile. My Mutant Marauders is able to play really well against his vehicles. I roll out a stealth tank in anticipation of some sort of air unit, or the stealth tank also does a great job with the Nod Buggy. Now, remember what I said, it's not that I don't love this deck. It's very interesting, and it's the whole fun of Try Your Deck Thursday, something crazy. But notice how the stealth tank here, because it takes so long to recharge, and I don't have an Auxana charge up, I can only take on so many Nod Buggies in a row, the Chem Buggies, before I naturally lose my Mutant Marauders. Right, I am letting him charge up the missile for me. I was hoping I could contest it at the very last second. I made a small mistake here in my micro, and you're going to see where it is right now. Did you see it? My stealth tank. See the one on the right just stood there? If I rolled both of them down, I would have contested the missile, blown him up. I would have won this game already. Bad micro on my part. I do see his Auxana charged up tank. So I go ahead and roll up my Mutant Marauder. I don't want my Marauder to take on too much damage from the Cyber Wheels, and I'm gonna do what Better Weight does, which is go ahead and try to blow up the enemy base. That's where I roll up my Chem Warriors. It's kind of ironic how the Chem Warriors can die against the Chem Buggies, but anyway, this is me trying to pressure the enemy here with my Chem Warrior. I try to blow up his base. What I should have done again was move my Stealth Tank to the top and just try to blow up his base. I didn't do that. I had my Stealth Tank trying to contest the missile, which in this case was a bad idea. This deck truly is dependent on trying to end the match as quickly as possible. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to do that. I don't have speed in this deck, and I lost. So like I said, it's not so much this is a bad deck, I'm just not adapted enough quite yet in using it. I'm a little bit slower with the Jade Catalyst Missile. This is a very high skill deck to use. I thought he rolled out a Flame Tank. I'm sorry, that was another match. He didn't. I'll show you the loss there. I'll show you one last way in which I did actually pick up a win. I can't see how this deck is useful in really high level competitive play like a Tiberium League. I'm not ripping on this deck, it's more of a big question mark, so I'm going to pose it to you guys. Go ahead and criticize me and help me figure out what I can do to improve on this deck. Here I roll out my Cyber Wheels. I know that by the player moving the Missile Squad back, they're trying to go with the Double Harvester, which is why I roll out with my Missile Squad. So then I can, or my Laser Squad, so that I can go ahead and pressure the Harvester. I do see all of the stupid Missile Squads, so that's why I roll out my Cyber Wheel to the bottom right. I try to block him off. I was a little bit slow in my reaction time. I know my Chem Warrior is going to do pretty good damage against him. So now, instead of worrying about the missile, I'm actually going to go ahead and pressure the enemy Harvester, while at the same time hold the missile pad. So that's exactly what I do here. I go ahead and press my advantage, and now I'm going to go try to blow up the base. I'm going to weaken off his Missile Squad first. I am still trying to get this missile. Like I said, this deck is very, very dependent on blowing up the enemy base. There it is. I let the Chem Warrior soak up damage for the Orca. I pressure the enemy with the base there, trying to use my Chem Warrior. Still a lot for me to learn with this deck. So I finally launched my Jade Catalyst Missile. Unfortunately, I launched it really, really late. I am able to pick up the Harvester there, and with the Stealth Tank, not utilized well. A lot of mistakes on my part, and I feel that this deck should be more competitive than what I'm showing you here, right? And that's the honest truth. I am able to see again. There's another mistake. My Stealth Tank. If I just blew up his Orca, I could have had a chance to win this match even earlier on. I didn't. However, I am in a good position right now to pressure the enemy. He's got a whole lot of Orcas out there, which isn't going to do much against my infantry. I am going to be able to blow up my Chem Warriors and blow up his base. I send my Mutineers or Mutant Marauders all the way to the top, and my Chem Warriors are to the bottom. I wasn't able to break through, but I was able to take the enemy base down to very low health, and then I'm just going to go ahead and launch a Catalyst Missile at the very last second and pick up the win. So folks, try your deck Thursday, Better Way. Thank you for shouting out on the Discord that we have. If you don't know where the Discord is, go check it out as a chat forum. Very interesting deck for sure. It needs to be used in the hands of a better player. And really, the key is to blow up the enemy base with this deck. So guys, thank you so much for watching, and as always, have a wonderful day. Take care.